So, why don't you tell us who you are and what you do?
My name is Stephen. I am the lead level designer here at Grinding Gear Games. I have been working with the team for coming up 5 years now. It's been an absolute pleasure to be part of it all. What was the second part? What do I do? Well, I help manage the team, actually. That's not the only thing I do. I do make levels as well. Help coordinate a lot of the planning that goes around what needs to go into the levels, and helping the level designers manage and organize their production as well, keeping things running smoothly along the pipeline, trying to also build levels myself.
Was that the first thing you did when you got here? You started as level design?
No. I didn't start as level design lead. I did start in level design though.
Okay.
So I joined the team when there was only 3 other individuals in level design. I believe another level designer had just left, so I had taken his position. I pretty much primarily have only worked on Path of Exile 2 since I've started here. I started when we were working on Act 2, moved into Act 3, and then we kind of came out of COVID lockdown, and it was a little bit clear that there was just some stalling in the production speeds, and things could be more refined. And so I started to, I guess, take it on myself to overreach a bit and really communicate with other departments. It wasn't asked of me at the time, wasn't really expected, but it really did help the efficiency of the overall team, honestly.
You like making levels?
I love making levels. I've been doing it for a long time, long time.
Okay.
I started when I was about 6 or 7 years old. The first game I was making levels for was Warcraft 1.
Yeah, very OG.
Very OG.
Started young.
Yeah, real young. And I was working. Well, I made maps for a whole lot of real-time strategy games. Like it was pretty much that era: Warcraft 1, Warcraft 2. Moved into Age of Empires, Age of Mythology, StarCraft.
Age of Empires 2, one of the best games of all time.
Absolutely,
Yeah.
Man. The definitive edition, can't get enough of it.
True, and the soundtrack too. It also had the good soundtrack to go with it.
Nice one to fall asleep to if you've ever tried, actually.
Yeah, absolutely.
And moved into Quake 3 came out, and then I played around with that for a bit. It was a bit too difficult for me at the time, but then a few years later got back into it and then started making levels for mods, and just continue making levels for any game I could get my hands on, really.
So when you're making a new map, a new layout, whatever you really call it, layout map, what do you typically call it?
Wow, that's a good question. Maps for PoE 2.
Map.
Yeah.
So when you're making a new map for PoE 2, how does the process start? Like, what's the first thing you do?
Well, it depends if it is a new idea or not. Typically, most of the ideas are fresh.
Okay.
Someone will have like a reference they've seen online, or they've got an idea based on 2 separate areas that we've got, and what that might look like when they're being combined. And from there, we kind of dive into that concept a bit more and figure out how much production time it would take if we combined absolutely everything from these 2 kits, and kind of cut out what we don't need, embellish the things that are different about this map or these shapes, and really try to set it apart from something else. So that is more if we're reusing content. We'll kind of like source 2, maybe 3 areas, combine them together, and then figure out something that's unique about this combination and really embellish that. And so then it feels quite different. Something that is a new concept is a bit of a longer process. So we need a lot more. We need to source a lot more resources in terms of the concepts, and then plan a bit further ahead. So there's like a whole grey boxing stage where we then effectively block out the shapes of all the individual tiles and rooms that we need, using very basic geometry, like real brutalist style blocks. And once that's all constructed, those shapes then get taken to the environment artists with the concepts. Environment artists are typically even involved just in conversation when it comes to the concepts that we've got.
So very frequently you're kind of going and communicating with them, and it kind of evolves that way?
Yeah, absolutely. We pretty much work in conjunction with each other all the time. There's not a single day we don't hear from each other. We're constantly at each other's desks talking. And it's really good to get just a level footing on what is realistically achievable as well, because we have ideas and aspirations, but ultimately level designers aren't artists. So we don't know how long a particular thing might take, or we might not even have certain collection of shapes and geometry that we need for this idea, or even materials, and these things can set us back a couple of weeks even. So all of that does need to be taken into account. So environment art are heavily involved in this process of kind of like building up the idea. So once they've got the shapes and all of that, they will turn all of our brutalist blocks into gorgeous art. We get that back, and then we will reconstruct the level again, because it would obviously have some differences in aesthetics and composition when it changes from blocks into the art. And so then there's a matter of like, okay, now we need to build this level so that it makes sense in a procedural sense, right? You've got to have rooms that make sense to generate very frequently, or like other rooms, if they generate far too frequently, it just doesn't make sense.
Sure.
So you've got to like kind of balance things out in a way that the whole level is kind of realistic in a sense.
How much information is available to you? So, I'm whoever tells you we need a new level, right?
Yeah.
So I come up to you. How much information are you originally given to be able to build off of?
So that's a good question. When it comes to the campaign, typically there is an idea already thought out over like the journey that the character is going to take. That will either come from Mark or Jonathan directly, or perhaps the story team. And so there will already be this arc that you're supposed to follow, and we can make suggestions here or there where I feel like the cadence might be off, we need another side area. I have a duty to provide my suggestions, but I do feel like they know exactly what they want when it comes to the story and the pacing of the lore. When it comes to endgame, we have a lot more freedom as level designers.
Okay.
Right? Like and then this is the part where we can really, instead of trying to focus on conveying the story as best as possible, we instead try to embellish elements of gameplay that we want to promote.
Okay.
And then also vibes as well, like just themes and vibes in general. So like someone might want to do in particular a snowy based area, and so they
like the summit or something.
Yeah, precisely. And so then they'll try to tackle that. Whereas someone might go, okay, I want to build a really nice breach map. So they'll build something super open.
On the more open maps, do you find it hard to get detail and keep it exciting in the map that's effectively a giant square?
It definitely can be challenging, because players will often, in terms of a player guiding themselves around an in-game map, they typically follow edges and shapes and lines, right?
Sure.
And when you have an open container like that, you realistically only have the outer border to follow.
Yeah, true. Yeah.
Though being in like the center of these maps, providing interest can be difficult actually. We often find that it is through like minor details, like even using trees and shadows from other taller objects to provide interest in these open spaces. And plants are a very good fallback typically. I'm not sure if you are too familiar with the terrain generation system, but we have the ability to fill in open spaces with random details. So then it is also a matter of making sure that those random details are kind of congruent with the theme of the area too.
One question I had when I was talking to the environmental guys, 'cause I was talking to the art guys over there, and I was curious, from the layout side of it, you probably have a similar issue, is how do you manage to create a map, all right, that conveys the feeling of like it's an open world, that somebody is immersive and they're living within the world, but yet you're kind of sending them in a direction in a way. You're trying to get the players from A to B, but you also want them to feel like they're not just a train on tracks.
That's a good question also. I noticed, so just going back to what I was saying before, if a level is an open container, they only have one edge to follow, which is the outer edge. We also found the same is true when you introduce a road into an area. You introduce a road, someone's bound to follow it immediately. They won't deviate from that path. So it's actually not something that we can avoid. What we try to do instead is we try to build our layouts into a recognizable pattern so that you learn them through repetition, right? You learn over time that oh, okay, this big open area is actually just a square every time. Or this area is, it always generates in the shape of a T, and you might start at one of the ends of that T, just as an example. Every graph typically follows some kind of shape or pattern.
Do you have to? That makes me think then, because like the leagues are different, right? So if you're playing like hardcore trade versus softcore trade, the map production is like somewhat different, right? Do you have to think about that when you're creating a map? Do you have to think about, okay, well, between the different leagues, like they're going to be generated differently?
Good question. That initially wasn't as much of a focus as we were building in-game at the same time as building through the campaign. And a lot of the part of Exile 2 balancing, we became more aware once we were able to really get in and play it just like everybody else and really hear a lot of the feedback from everybody else, all the players, I mean. And it was through playing that we recognized like the gaps that we kind of needed to fill. And with each upcoming league, I can't make any promises, but we do definitely try to make sure that the maps that we do introduce work well for the league that would accompany it. Or even if there are gaps in maps, like for example, I know that we don't currently have a lot of real open, easy breach maps.
Sure, yeah.
Which can be frustrating for people who like to chase breach. So we make an effort to introduce more of those.
Do you find it hard to go back and make changes? Because you were talking about, the players give feedback or something. It's like maybe, Crypt is an example. Like the Crypt was a little bit brutal before, but now it actually was quite better. You added the hallways, etc. Mm-hmm. So do you find it hard to go back and reiterate changes on an already completed design, like more so than just making a new map entirely?
I personally don't find it difficult because I welcome change. The issue I find is we're actually going to have this coming up with the upcoming league. We renamed one of the maps. Okay. I thought to myself that we're going to have conflicting information online, right, with tutorials and stuff like that. People will get familiar with certain layouts, but the changes that we do make hopefully just improve gameplay and don't really change the map too much. If a map would change so drastically, I personally feel like it should just get pulled and then re-released as something different.
Sure.
Yeah. That being said, I feel like a lot of the changes we do end up making, people may not even notice just because of how random they generate in the first place. In fact, we've already made changes to maps that I'm pretty sure people haven't noticed.
Really?
There's been a lot of scale reductions that I've seen nobody mention. And then other things like Hidden Grotto, just off the top of my head, we made an effort to just promote some more open spaces, realizing that it was generating really claustrophobic maze-like spaces. So we needed a few more open spaces at least to allow people who didn't have movement skills to have a good time.
Speaking of claustrophobic spaces, do you get to have information ahead of the time in terms of like what monsters are actually going to be there? Are you getting information that these are going to be projectile guys, so maybe don't put a door so that they get shotgunned like the goats in PoE 1 through a door?
Good question. We typically know ahead of time what the monsters will look like. So we know the theme of the area, and we do get a sheet actually of what all the monsters that are going to be introduced into the area and what they'll look like. Their attacks, however, not always are prepared in advance.
Sure.
Sometimes they are, and when they are, yes, we do make design decisions to make sure that they are compatible with the shapes we make. In the cases where we don't get that information in advance, and it has happened before, we just have to go back and make sure that they kind of do work together. One example of that is actually Lower Mechanarium,
okay,
where it was the Cold Spectres. We knew they would be in the area, didn't realize how devastating they would be. It was also accompanied by another issue that we had to make this change, but we ended up removing a lot of detail from that lower floor section to make it less claustrophobic and more open and easier to navigate. You may actually be already able to tell in certain rooms there seems to be a lot more packed detail than other rooms. I think those rooms are actually just missed in that little sweep of removing detail. But that was just one of the examples of that happening. It typically is more important for bosses actually that we get those shapes right.
That I'm curious about. Let's talk about boss arenas then. So, what's the process of making a boss arena? I mean, are you getting information related to the mechanics, what attacks they're going to do, and you're kind of building the arena around it, or do you have more like free play?
So sometimes the arena shape is requested. Not too often though. And sometimes, most of the times, we actually get freedom to build a unique shape or a shape
Okay.
that we think suits. Sometimes the attacks are already prepared, and sometimes they are not. So if I have a boss where I am already aware of every single attack it's got, right?
Sure.
It's got projectile, or it's got like a sweeping arc, or it's got a big AoE slam, then I recognize the patterns that those attacks make, and then I see if I can create an arena that provides a really interesting fight based off those shapes. Now, sometimes it works out really well, and sometimes my imagination gets the better of me, and it doesn't quite work out exactly how I thought. But in most cases, it will. It is. I do try to design it specifically based on what skills they have, and if the skills aren't actually. If all of them aren't designed yet, sometimes the interesting shapes that we make inspire skills and attacks.
You got an example of that?
There is a boss upcoming, actually. I'm not sure if I can talk about it or not, where I designed a boss that had a spike trap system,
Okay.
and recognized that this boss was like it was really in line with this theme of spike traps, and I wanted to introduce a way where we could have spike traps that the player is able, like traps that players can actually interact with and then use on a tactical basis. So I don't know how much of that actually got implemented. I'm still yet to actually like try it out. But I did see in development that they were doing some real cool work on that, where they had repurposed the spike trap system on the ground into boss attacks, which is super cool. Yeah. Another one is the Zest fight, where
Oh, really?
yeah. So they already had ideas where the arms would come down and slam you, but then design the arena in such a way that there was just like so many off angles where they then had them come out at so many different angles and slam down across the arena.
That's a good fight, by the way. That's like, arguably the best fight in the game.
Yeah, it's insane. I really enjoy it.
Did you have to make the corridors? You got to get the 3 offshoot corridors. Did you have to make it just long enough where the arm can just barely reach you if it's fun from the outside?
Exactly, yeah.
That's very intentional.
Yeah, very intentional. The thing is that was designed in a way where we actually wanted the whole arena to be like on the palm of a hand.
Oh,
yeah, which would have been really cool. It's just that this is something I learned from a book on town planning, actually. Really boring topic. I wouldn't recommend you read it. But if you provide someone with a road with like more than 3 decisions, people actually take, or like anything that has more than 3 decisions, people take a lot longer to decide.
That's true.
Than just it's a lot more overwhelming.
And they're less satisfied as well. Like, I think there was some, I don't know, it doesn't matter, some consumer review in which they decided, like, if you have a color between red and blue as opposed to red, blue, green, yellow, like, the people were more satisfied, like, no, I picked the right color, I picked blue.
That's fascinating. I didn't realize that. And so that's why we only went with like the 3 prongs that come off from that center part.
Okay.
Yeah. You can get away from the center if you need to, but then you're also punished as the arena space gets a lot shorter. So in some cases, these little alcoves can be red herrings as well, as like bosses are actually more difficult the further away you are. So yeah, it can be a bit of a red herring sometimes. So
what if you have a boss in the campaign? Let's say you design the boss arena, arena in the campaign, and then you decide we're going to take that campaign boss, throw them in the maps like you do, and you're trying to mix it up a little bit so it doesn't feel like so samey. Like how different do you have to make those boss arenas in a map version of a layout as opposed to the campaign version of a layout?
That is a really good question. So it depends on how much of the boss attacks are changing. Most cases they don't change, but in the cases they do, then that may call for an arena shape change.
Okay.
The other considerations that get taken into account are actually, how does this campaign boss fight feel in a 6-player party?
Oh, yeah, I didn't even think of that. Yeah.
Crowbell, we reshaped the center portion of Crowbar's arena in Blooming Fields. And that was, I remember just playing through in the campaign in early development, and I had like a 4-player party, and I just couldn't even see anything. And so I realized that like we had designed this as a single-player experience, absolutely forgetting about, well, we hadn't designed it as a single-player experience, but we had been testing it and just ourselves in this area, and not realizing once you add in 2, 3, 4 more people and their AoE effects, you've completely lost sight of the boss. So, and knowing that people play a lot more as a party when it comes when you're in endgame, we knew we had to make those changes. So it's typically that will be the first thing I consider if an arena does need to change size. The other thing is that where bosses end up getting reused, typically the theme isn't the same as the original. So we will need to remake a new arena where hopefully we kind of get the spacing just about right. But again, it also depends on how the boss is in its in-game version, because some of them might be far more aggressive, and so you actually need to give them more space. Or, for example, the interesting one was Swamp Tower, Blackjaw. Yeah. So Blackjaw, I came to the realization after speaking with one of the game designers that he's actually really easy when you're right up close.
Yeah.
And so we designed this whole boss arena with the idea that the player would run away from it. And so the fight would be incredibly difficult with Lightning Blackjaw. And like just watching so many people run it for the first time on Twitch was like pretty cool. As you see the people who have already kind of figured it out, that Blackjaw, you've got to really go right up against them. We just tackle it straight on. But then the ones who are really not sure about it,
get scared of them.
You see them back off and then instantly you just get wiped.
Do you watch the reactions much? Like how often you make a map and you're like, I want to see what these people think of this map?
All the time.
All the time?
All the time. I think some of the best feedback I can get is actually just watching someone play.
Really?
Not hearing what they've got to say, just watching somebody else think.
And the decisions they make?
The decisions they make, and with the build that they're using in particular as well. I think that really matters. Because all different types of builds, play differently.
Do you have to, I mean, obviously, I guess you do, but like, how often are you having to consider different types of builds when you're creating a layout? Do you just create the layout and you think, well, some of the builds are going to be really good in this layout, but this is what this layout is? Or do you think, like, I need to make this layout particularly fair for as many builds as possible? Or, this build in particular doesn't have any layouts that's good for it? Like, how does that work?
That's a good question as well. I have to say it isn't a major consideration on the initial phases. Sometimes it can be where someone's got an idea on how they want to try something new. But typically that thought comes in at one of the later points where you go like, okay, what if I look at just the gameplay spaces of this map, what is this providing that no other map has? And then you line it up against all the rest of the map pool, and then you realize like, oh, okay, we've just built another maze-like map. We need to. This pool is growing where like our long linear gorge-style maps just don't exist. So we need to build more of these. We find that we kind of already know the shapes that promote certain types of gameplay. And so we know that we just need to have a variety of all of them, really. I don't think we've had a single case yet where we've had a map and we've realized that it's not going to work for any build. So there will always be something that will work for some kind of build. Even the tight claustrophobic spaces that are difficult to navigate work really well for a ricochet build. So it's like something that someone hates is something that somebody else loves, right?
Map,
yeah. Something like Willow, which is gigantic, is if someone's trying to speedrun their map, it's not a good selection. But if someone wants Breach, then it's big and open, and they can go wherever they please.
So speaking of like, tight and claustrophobic, like, ARPGs are typically like darker. They're a little bit more gritty, a little bit more like you feel the pressure a bit. How often do you have to consider, okay, well, maybe we need a map that's a little bit more relieving, like take the pressure off? Is that something that you're considering while you're designing maps?
That thought actually came in at the beginning of the discussion for the maps that coming up for this league. Really.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah. We realized that it was actually when we a few of us went back to play PoE 1 versus PoE 2. We realized how much easier it is to play PoE 2 half asleep, PoE 1 half asleep, than PoE 2. So we have introduced a bunch of simpleton maps, really. Very easygoing. After you run it the first time, you should memorize the layout, to be honest. That kind of stuff.
Like maps like Dune or something. For
Yeah,
instance, like just
precisely.
open,
That's what I'm
easy.
talking about. Is I guess it's more that like as you build more and more levels, you just strive to do something new and creative.
Sure,
and, just something really different all the time. And I think we got to a point where we were trying so much unique stuff, I guess forgetting a little bit that some of the more basic, simple stuff is really appreciated by the player base. I mean, I can't really fault us as level designers, right? We're just trying to.
You're out there trying to create art.
Yeah.
New.
Trying to build the next wonder of the world, right? And not recognizing that sometimes simple is just what you need.
You looking forward to seeing the reactions to what you've created for the upcoming league?
Absolutely. I'm actually most interested to see the metrics on what becomes the most played map after this league.
Well, that brings up an interesting question then. So, like, what is your metric of success? Like, when you create a map, what is it that makes you realize, no, this is a good map? Is it like the player response to it? Is it the percentage of how often that map is being played? Is it the feeling that people are getting from the map? Like, what is it you're looking for?
That is a very tricky question, and I don't know if I'm going to be able to answer it. A metric for success. Sometimes you know immediately. Sometimes you know immediately. As soon as you run through, you know that this just feels good. Like when you're able to pass it to another level designer, and then they are able to recognize that it's good as well. Because sometimes you might get too proud of your own work, or even the inverse is true. Sometimes you might get imposter syndrome.
Sure.
And then I feel like as a level designer, you're constantly thinking about gameplay elements and art. And so your mind is really in both places. And I feel like you can tell when something plays well but looks bad, and you can tell the inverse as well, when it looks good but plays bad. My personal metric is something that is intuitive to navigate and doesn't feel punishing if you get to a dead end, right?
Sure,
like,
yeah.
It rewards you for exploring. And then you have your own choice of, okay, do I fully clear this, or do I just beeline it to what I want to do? I think the maps that have all those qualities are the best maps that we have.
Do you have a personal favorite map?
Do I have a personal favorite? I really like Slick.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay, that's one of my personal favorites too.
Yeah, I really like Slick.
It's one of those simple maps, like you were saying.
I tell you what, when I first saw, so that was made by one of our level designers, Connor, and when I first saw it, I thought it was really creative because it's like no other thing that we've got, right? But then it's kind of just looked the same everywhere, and didn't really know what to make of it. But then just throwing some lights in a very organized fashion, it ended up looking really well. But then the layout itself is just so rewarding, right? Like the dead ends aren't too long. You don't feel like you've wasted a lot of time. The width is just good enough. It's like it's not too tight, but it's wide enough that you can see everything on your screen all at once.
Get some good packs in there.
Yeah. And I feel like it's just it's a nice aesthetic as well. It's something that's quite different. It's one of the maps that was quite simple, but ended up actually having a really good result. How
do you create maps with realism in mind and immersion when you're creating places that aren't real?
That's a good question. Sometimes you don't need to, actually.
Okay.
Yeah. I find that whatever you do, you just need to be consistent throughout the whole level. It doesn't have to be realistic. It just has to be consistent, I guess, to be believable.
Yeah, okay.
That being said, we definitely do have rules over what we should and shouldn't do. Most things are based off realism, but we do bend the rules wherever we need to, right?
I am quite curious about the rules that you guys follow, though.
Oh yeah, that it's not like there's 10 commandments.
Okay.
There's not like a full set of rules. I guess my number one thing is gameplay of realism.
Okay.
I think that's always been a thing for my level design everywhere that I do. Gameplay over realism 100%. Like even when it comes to Path of Exile, you'll notice our doors are extremely wide, extremely tall. They're not human-sized doors. They're gameplay-sized doors. The times where we have done realism-sized bridges, we get things like Dreadnought. It feels so tight to play through. And that's fine, because the moment you add super wide bridges on Dreadnought, it looks really bizarre. So there are times where you have to stick with realism. There are times where you can bend the rules a bit. We have other rules in terms of aesthetics, mainly. Well, no, we have rules in terms of gameplay as well. But these are a lot more minor. So you'll notice that Guild Stash is always on the left in towns, always.
Really? I never noticed that.
Yeah.
Huh.
Yeah. That was... Somebody else actually started that in PoE 1, except they missed it in one town, and it irked me so much. And so I made sure that in every single PoE 2 town, that the stashes are always the same. Other things are based off aesthetics, so we make sure that areas have good color harmony, shape, good shape language, consistent readability, things like that. Just it's more, they're more level design generalizations than GGG level design.
Guidelines, but not hard rules.
Pretty much, yeah.
Well, last question for you then, with upcoming 0.3 here. Spoiler free, but how are you feeling about your time constraints and getting it all done?
Really good, actually. Really good. Yeah, I work with a great bunch of guys. Honestly, the team, I couldn't talk them up enough. They it's an absolute pleasure to work with them, and like everyone here. I know it's not our department that is going to be scrapped for time, so I'm feeling really good. We have a lot of content. Like, if you asked me this question 3 weeks ago, I probably would have given a different answer. Now that we are 4 weeks out, I'm feeling pretty good about it, actually.
I think that's a perfect exit.
Cool.
Right there. You're feeling pretty good about it. Well, thanks for the answers, taking the time, Stephen. And this has been eye-opening a little bit when it comes to map design and layout. So I appreciate you taking the time today.
Absolute pleasure. Thank you for coming by.
Yeah, of course.